Okay, in this next video, we're going to talk a little bit about software. I do appreciate y'all for hanging out with me so far, but we're going to pick up the pace a little bit and get through this as quickly as possible. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get signed in. I'm currently using Windows 11 on our Dell that we have. So let's go ahead and get logged in. Now, the software that I am talking about is like when you're wanting to replace Microsoft Office. There's a couple things that you can do here. Like for most people, you don't really dig that deep into Microsoft Office as far as its capabilities and things like that. Most people only need like a basic word processor, spreadsheet, that kind of thing, which can very well just be handled just fine on the Windows version of Office. Come on now. Go away. Okay, so once you get signed into office.com, you can actually go and use Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams. All of this is already available to you. All you got to do is sign in. And you can actually just create bookmarks to this. Like for example, I can just create a document here. And it's got the ribbon across the top, just like you do your desktop icons. Of course, like I said before, it's not the same as the desktop. There are differences between the two, but for most users, they really won't notice a huge difference. If, however, this does not work for you, there is another alternate you can use, and that is free and open source software similar to LibreOffice, which is a popular Office suite that comes with pretty much every single Linux distribution out there. It's in their core repository, so you can always download this and use this instead here. It is available for Linux, Windows, and Mac. Mac, it's available for both Intel and Apple Silicon. There are other things in play here, like if you were looking to replace Adobe Premiere, because Adobe Premiere is not available for Linux. You can also use Kdenlive. That is one option. Kdenlive is free and open source software. This also works on Windows, Mac, and Linux as well. You also have DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve. And this is also available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. There is a YouTuber that I will leave a description or a link to his channel in the description below that has phenomenal how-tos on how to use this. He's familiar with CapCut. He's familiar with DaVinci Resolve. He's also familiar with Adobe Premiere. And he himself has switched from Adobe Premiere to DaVinci Resolve here. There are other ways that you can find out alternatives to any application you have. Let's say, for example, I used to chat on IRC a lot, and let's say I did not know a good alternative to MIRC. Okay, you can also go in here to search and do alternate to MIRC, and it will give you a list of alternatives. You can do alternatives to any of these here, that kind of thing. Alternative to .NET is a good resource that you can also try here. The answer to that question is HexChat, one of. Unfortunately, HexChat has recently, by recently I mean like last year, has recently stopped. Well, actually, yeah, beginning of last year has recently halted their production. However, it's open source. You can go grab it yourself if you're familiar with how to code and continue the project yourself. HexChat is actually a fork of yet another IRC client known as XChat. And that's the beauty of open source, is you can just, if you don't like the way one application works, or if that application has discontinued, somebody else can come along, put them shoes on and continue from there. They don't have to just let the project go completely dead. If there's any other things that you want that you have to have on Windows, search to see if there is an alternative available for Linux. Let's see here. Let's go with Adobe alternative for Acrobat Reader. We'll do that. For Linux. And of course, there are Foxit, Ocular, Evidence, Firefox. PDF readers are actually built into every single browser. You don't even need to download something special just to be able to read a PDF. How about Acrobat Pro for Linux? It's FOSS is a good site that you can go to here. Best free and open source alternatives to Adobe products in Linux. It should list out a few of them. For Photoshop, there's GIMP, which is stated so often it's a meme at this point in time. Inkscape for Adobe Illustrator. Scribus for InDesign. OpenShot for Adobe Premiere. And I also mentioned a couple ones in place of Adobe Premiere, like I said, Kdenlive and DaVinci Resolve. But this is the point in searching for alternate software. This is mentioned first because it can be a disqualifier. If you are what's known as vendor locked, which means that you have to use Adobe Premiere, you're not allowed to use any kind of alternative. You will have to stay on Windows. It's just all there is to it. There's no alternative. Therefore, your journey, at least in that capacity, in that context, and perhaps on that specific computer, is done. You've come to a standstill. So that's why we talk about software first, because it's one of the biggest things that can hang up. Another thing that will hang you up is the next subject, which is hardware. If you have proprietary hardware, you absolutely must use. A case in point is AverMedia has a 4K AverMedia capture card. They have several products. Okay, some of them work on Linux, some of them do not. Like this one here. I think it's this one. Yeah, this one here. Not only does it do 4K pass through, but it also does 4K recording. There is no Linux drivers for this. If you have to use this card and only this card, then you're vendor locked. You have to go ahead and stay, at least on that computer, in Windows. Now, if you're okay with using, say, if you're okay using like something like a 1080p, and you don't need 4K, there's others, like you can use these external cards here, and those should translate fairly well across to Linux. There's one of them in here that is an internal PCI that works just fine. And I can't remember exactly which one it is. I have this one right here, this 573. And it's in a different computer. But that's my point. Like this one right here, this UVC, this is a good indication. UVC is a good indication that it will work on Linux just fine, out of the box with OBS Studio. So it's the same concept with hardware. This is also something else that is another game changer. This will stop your progress in its tracks, at least on that specific computer. You may have to build or buy a separate computer in order to continue using Linux. However, there are always workarounds to that, and one of the workarounds to that is to use a live USB with or without persistence. In fact, I believe from the time you're watching this 2 videos ago, I did a video teaching you how to burn a live USB with Linux Mint 22 with persistence using Rufus. And once you have that done, you just put the thumb drive in. Actually, what is on this thumb drive here? I don't know. Hang on just a second. I'm going to see what's on this thumb drive, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so that USB isn't prepared to continue on with the conversation. What I'm going to do, we'll get back to that. In fact, the next video I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about using a USB to test. Like I said in the last video, you want to make sure you got everything backed up just in case. Booting from a live USB does not change anything on the drive itself or on your computer itself. So if you got Windows, you boot from a live disk or live USB, it's not going to mess with Windows. But it's always a good idea to have a backup anyway. So we'll carry on with that in the next video. What I'm going to do there is I'm going to talk about virtualization a little bit, and we'll talk about booting from a live USB to do testing. Now, everything I've said in here, even though it's been about 11 minutes as far as the video goes, this stuff can take a while, and it's all up to you. The actual migration itself from Windows to Linux, the entire process can take 5 minutes or less. The process itself is actually trivial. It's preparing to do it is what takes the time. That's what takes the research. So software, search through software, see if you can find alternatives to the things that you need. Hardware, you can double check your hardware. There's as I was saying earlier, just like with software, you can say, does my AverMedia work with Linux? Okay, and somebody somewhere is going to know whether it does or not. Like this one here is mentioning UVC again here on this one here. So Taiwanese, right. AverMedia devices are well supported under Linux. Well, this may be a generally true statement. I'm not saying this is wrong. What I'm saying is the exact model that I have does not work on Linux. I'm sure they do have cards and devices that work very well on Linux. Let's see here. There's other things that you have problems with. Does my NIC work with Linux? It's a network interface card if you're not sure what NIC is. And for the most part, the answer to this question is a resounding yes. As far as network cards go. Another problem you'll have is with sound card. And you'll have to have the exact model number of your sound card to see if it works. A lot of people don't know how to get a hold of that information. They don't know exactly how to research the entire thing in as far of a depth as they need to go. This is where playing with the USB will kind of make that up. So what you do is you record or you burn an image to thumb drive, boot from the thumb drive, and check to see if your sound's working, check to see if you have internet, check to see if your Wi-Fi is working, check to see if your printer is working. Printers is another hardware issue that you might have with Linux, although it's not that often because Linux uses something that's called driverless printing. But these are all considerations that you have to take into consideration or into account. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and leave the video here, and I will see you in the next one where we will talk briefly about virtualization. It's not something that I really recommend as far as a troubleshooting tool or any kind of gauge as to whether your computer is going to be okay with transitioning. It's definitely not something that you can spec out as far as whether your hardware can use Linux Mint or whatever, because you're emulating it. You're not actually running Linux Mint on your physical hardware. There's an abstraction layer in there. That's why I would recommend just burning it to a USB, booting off the USB, and testing it from there. And we will go over that in a future video. So anyway, for now, I'm going to go ahead and leave it right here where it is. If you like videos like this and you want to see more, make sure you click like, subscribe, smash that notification bell. In the comment section below, let me know, is there anything specific that you need help with or any kind of guidance you need when it comes to researching software or hardware. My fear on this is I don't want to get too deep into this. I can talk for hours and hours and hours and hours about stuff that probably doesn't even matter to 90% of the people. So I'm trying to prevent myself from doing that. So anyway, if you do have a question, go ahead and leave that in the comment section, and we'll talk about that question specifically. This is going to be an open-ended playlist, so even a year from now, if somebody a year from now sees this video and has a question, ask the question. We'll talk about it. Anyway, see y'all in the next video.